Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Thursday, January 6th. Welcome into another edition of the Unreasonable Odds podcast presented by DraftKings, Sportsbook. I am Julian Edlow here with my co-host Steve Buchanan as usual. We are going to get into some of this messy Week 18 as we discussed on Tuesday with you guys. A great player prop week, much more so than betting sides, in my opinion. And we have a guest with us that very much so happens to like player props. And we will talk, as NBA has been going very well for me. It's been going very well for our guests. So we will talk some NBA player props at the end. We will have another guest later in the show, Ben Rasa of Awesemo.com, to talk the national championship game, some Alabama, Georgia on Monday night, January 10th. Unreasonable Odds, we will be running a free bet giveaway. I'm not sure what it is yet, but it will be coming out on the DraftKings Sportsbook Twitter handle. Some Unreasonable Odds promotion, some free bets given away to you for the national championship game, some of the listeners. So keep an eye out for that. I teased the guest. If you're watching on YouTube, you see the guest. Odds checkers, John Hyslop. You can find him on Twitter at Slop Rules, SLOP Rules. John, welcome to the Unreasonable Odds podcast. How you doing, man?
Just living the dream, guys. Thanks for having me.
Of course. As we do with new guests, we will play a very brief game of Know You Better. So just a few questions, have fun with them, whatever the first thing comes to mind for you. Beautiful, but your favorite win in your sports betting career. I know, we're in a group chat on Twitter, a sports betting group chat. I know you like a lot of plus odds stuff. It can be a ridiculous plus odds win. It can be your biggest cash win. You don't need to say numbers, just whatever your favorite win is so far.
To be honest with you, my last one is always my favorite one.
All right. So what's going to be your most memorable loss that you have? Which one kind of really stung?
Northwestern, it was probably 10 years ago. It was Ohio State. They were +6. And they were winning literally the whole game. It was a Saturday night. It was the marquee game. I had people over. It was awesome. Ohio State took the lead with literally less than a minute left. They ran one of those, the lateral plays. And Northwestern fumbled the ball and Ohio State picked it up in the end zone. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
It was a while ago, but it was
seriously
just the worst feeling I think I've ever felt in my life. It was horrible. It was like you thought you won the game the whole time. Northwestern was going to win straight up, and then just whatever they did get behind. Literally last minute, Ohio State scores, goes ahead. You're like, all right, cool. They're still going to cover, and it's like, no, you just lost.
That's called a backdoor. All right. Your best advice. I know you've been doing this a long time. So your best advice for new sports bettors. The only answer you're not allowed to give is bankroll management, betting responsibly. We know we preach all that stuff, but your best advice otherwise.
Best advice would be, bankroll stuff is big.
Right.
Not too many in one day. Just narrow your picks. You know what I mean? It's fun to have 50 bets, don't get me wrong, but to be honest with you, man, you can't keep up with all that anyway. So just go with this. A few games that you're going to watch. You're going to enjoy your time a lot better like that. And plus you'll know what to cheer for too. Cause sometimes when you have too many bets, you don't even know if what was just happened was good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wait, is that good?
No, I know what you mean. Sometimes you have a side in a game and a player prop on the other team. Mm-hmm. Or player props going against each other. There's, conflicting rooting interests. Too much action can be a bad thing.
Quality over quantity.
Yes.
That's something I need to get used to. I just put out I like to update on Twitter from time to time, kind of my season records. And I did that this morning. I was long overdue. And college basketball this year has just been all over the place. And then I put out my NBA numbers and I'm like, why did I even look at the college board yesterday that I went 0-2 in when I went, 3-0 in player props, and the lean I put out cash 2 to go 4-0. That's where it's at right now. So quality over quantity, for sure. speaking of quality over quantity, you certainly do not want to be betting too many of these week 18 games, if any of the spreads. I might bet all player props. Like I said on Tuesday, much rather than bet a side, I would rather even just make a 3 or 4 team money line parlay for some of these big favorites that need to win. Kansas City on Saturday, the Titans to beat the Texans. I know the Colts are like minus 1,000. There's no way they're losing. Like, you put 3 or 4 of those together to get to like plus money. I would rather do that than bet a weird spread this week. But I would rather do player props than any of that. But before we get there, the week 18 board, we kind of covered it on Tuesday. Steve, I'm going to start with you. Has anything changed for you since we spoke on Tuesday? I guess the Bengals, we were like, oh, the Bengals will have Burrow against the Browns. No, That's now an untouchable game.
Yeah, because we were talking about that too, because like on Tuesday, the perception was that the Bengals still had an outside chance of getting the number 1 seed. That is still true, but the Bengals are like, forget it. We're not even going to be trying for it. We're going to be resting our starters. Mixon, I believe, has COVID. So they was the first one to drop. And then it was like, okay, well, now Burrow's not going to play. That doesn't seem to be injury related, just resting him for the playoffs, which is smart, because he came off that field hobbling last week, so no need to run him out there. So now that is flipped once again. Now the Browns are 6-point favorites. When we were talking about it on Tuesday, I think the Bengals were only 2.5-point favorites at the time. So now obviously a massive shift. The Browns have a better chance of winning because Case Keenum is taken under center this week now. So without Baker Mayfield, you should like the Browns more. But yeah, so totally not on the Bengals anymore at this point. Glad I didn't place that bet after the show. I was actually really thinking about it. Glad I didn't do that, because now it's, a total crapshoot, just like the rest of the board, really.
You can't bet aside for this slate until kickoff, until it happens. Like 90 minutes before a game is when you can bet it. Otherwise, you can't bet it. And I'm a guy that loves to get value early in the week.
Of course.
You just can't do it. We just talked about conflicting bets. The Bengals are now are a conflict for me. I have Joe Burrow comeback player of the year at some plus money. So I was like, he's sitting. He's going to give Dak a little chance to extend that small lead in the odds. I also have Mac Jones offensive rookie of the year. I just got to assume Chase is sitting this one out. If Mac Jones can have another 3-touchdown game in Miami, 11-win team, if they win that game in Miami and he throws a few touchdowns, can he regain that lead? There's another conflict for me. I don't know I don't know if the Bengals resting guys is good or bad for me. We will find out when the awards come out. John, looking at the week 18 board, anything for you that you say, if we get there, if we get to kick off and nothing has changed, I'm looking there?
No, not a chance. The only thing that I'm even thinking about, and it's more from like a rooting interest, is just like praying that the Jaguars beat the Colts.
Yes.
Just to see what would happen. That would be just so funny if that happened. So there's my bet. You know what I mean? Like, I can be completely entertained by that until it goes south, which, I mean, it's probably going to happen. But
that could go south in the first quarter.
Yeah, like right away. But man, what if that happened?
So not only would that happen, if that does happen, the whole stadium are going to be dressed up like clowns on top of that. So the Jaguars might even pull off the upset and everybody's dressed like a clown. Like, it would just be an absolute cluster.
Perfect. Perfect. I mean,
but Julian and I, you may know this already, have a vested interest in this because we both bet Colts to miss the playoffs way back before the season started when Carson Wentz had the 2 injuries. Was it both ankles? Was that what it was originally? He's had so many injuries. Whatever it was.
At the time, or ankles. I don't even remember.
Yeah, I bet against him one week where he had both of his, I think it was both ankles.
Yes, it was both ankles. Right.
They won the game too.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
It's like,
I remember that.
So Julian and I both thought that bet was dead because the Colts were, going to beat the Raiders, and they lost to the Raiders. And now it's like, it's still basically dead. Okay.
You're back. It's kind of back.
Right. There's a little sliver left. So, like, we would love if the Jaguars won this game.
Yes, that would. I'm more on it just for the other angle of the tie between the Raiders and Chargers, I think. Like, if that were to happen, then those two would, if they tied, then they would both get it. That would just be fun. I just want to see that happen.
Yep. And it's unfortunate that they're playing the Jaguars too, because it doesn't even really give us an opportunity to hedge. Because, I mean, you're not going to hedge with the Colts money line this week. So it's It's quite unfortunate.
Yeah, you're just kind of sitting there, dead ducks. Yep. Hopefully not dead ducks, but
yeah. So sides are tough this week. I'm not giving one out. We'll see if on Sunday we'll give one out. But player props are trickling out on DraftKings Sportsbook. There's not many yet, but we kind of have an idea of what we like. These late season games, I've been betting all on incentives, whether it's financial incentives or record-breaking incentives. Now, in week 16, that worked well when I backed Antonio Brown props and he had 10 catches for over 100 yards. Went back to it last week, invented a new way to lose by going crazy in the middle of a game and taking your clothes off and quitting your job. Everybody has a bad day. This one happened very, very publicly and happened to lose me my player props. Now, that said, there are even stronger spots in week 18 and some spots that I love. So I'll start by going over a few of my favorite. Starting with statistical incentives rather than financial. Cooper Kupp needs 12 catches, 136 yards to the best season as a wide receiver in either. His player prop is out at 126.5 yards on DraftKings Sportsbook. That's a lot. The problem is here, as long as it's to 135.5, I'll bet it because I think he's going to get it. So this is one of those weird times where the number doesn't really matter to me that much. Like when I bet Antonio Brown last week, it came out at 69.5 yards, closed at 78.5 yards. That could matter. But if Kupp is sitting there at 125 yards in the fourth quarter, they will find a way to get there. I'm not really concerned about that. And he had 11 for $122 in the first matchup against the Niners. Cooper Kupp is the first place that I'm looking. Do you want me to run through my list, or do we want to react player by player here? We got a preference, Steve?
Yeah, we can react.
Do you have a reaction?
So the only thing I'm worried about is I think the Rams win this handedly, right?
So this is an important game to both teams. Rams need to win for the division, that 2 seed. Niners need to win to get in.
So I have said numerous times, I think the Rams are one of the worst good teams in the league, right? Because you look at their record, you think they should be a good team. When you watch them play, you're like, how is this team with this record, right? That's like the Ravens, exactly. You know what I mean? My worry is that the Rams go up big and early, and then they're like, okay, we got this, we can coast now. That's the only thing. This number is so astronomical. And I feel like we're in the same situation with Derrick Henry last year. Was it last year when he was going for the rushing title? Or 2 years ago, and we were having almost the same conversation.
Well, Derrick Henry is my story with Derrick Henry. I had Nick Chubb to lead the league in rushing 2 years ago. He was way ahead. He had 34 yards on the last week, and that still left Derrick Henry in a spot where he needed 250 plus. Right. And the Titans were playing for a playoff.
Did you get it?
And they still got it to him. Yeah. Yes, I did not hedge.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
got it ripped away.
I had to laugh.
18-1 Nick Chubb to lead the league.
It was brutal.
That's a gut punch.
I didn't hedge with 2 weeks left in the season. Derrick Henry missed a game.
Yep.
And then played the last week of the season and got all the yards he needed to get it.
It's a horror story.
Yep. So same spot last season. I made up for it. I made my money back. Derrick Henry playing the Texans, the same team he got it against the year before, needed 250 yards to get 2K. No, Samir's slacking me. The Henry thing was last season. This is 2 years in a row. First story is 2019. Next story is 2020. He needed a lot of yards against the Texans to get to 2,000, and they handed it to him 34 times for 250 and 2 touchdowns week 17 last year. I bet all Henry's overs last year, made my money back a year later, and now Derrick Henry and I can be on okay terms.
Nice.
So here, John, do you have a reaction, I guess, to Cooper Kupp? Are you on board with the big over here?
That was the one I got as a question mark, just because the books can put you in a spot because they know, obviously. So let's say the reception one is the one that I feel like they can get you the most on, just because he needs 12. So they can throw, a 10.5 out there, whereas normally it would have been 8.5, 9, or something like that. The yardage, it's $126. That's a lot of yards, but at the same time, I think you have the right angle. I mean,
I just think
if he's not going to get 120 and then get stuck.
The difference to me is normally like you would say like, oh, this came out at 117.5. It's now 126.5. You can't bet it. This is one of those weeks where I feel like the 117 and the 126, huge difference any other week, now becomes more
doesn't matter.
Once you get up there in the range, they'll find a way to get there.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me see. Do I have any? Oh, incentive ones. This lines up with the Derrick Henry one. I don't know if the Colts will get it for him, but the Colts need to win. And Jonathan Taylor's 266 away from 2,000. Maybe they're up 21 at halftime and they don't, and he has whatever, 150 yards and they don't go for it. But the Jonathan Taylor rushing over against Jacksonville in a must-win game, I'm already interested. Now you give me the incentive that he's almost to 2,000. Even if he doesn't get there, there's still the thought early in the game, like get those 150 in the first half, get up 21-0, and it's in reach. Jonathan Taylor is going to be a big number this week. He was like 108.5 last week, I think. Another big over that I might go after. And it, go figure. These two guys are both minus 110 to win the Offensive Player of the Year, Kupp and Taylor. I don't think anybody thinks Jonathan Taylor's not going to have a huge game against Jacksonville this week, John. But are you going to be considering the rushing prop when it comes out? This is going to be like mid-teens, 114.5, something like that.
I like that one better than the Kupp one.
Okay.
Just because the Colts, man, they just feed him. Like, just go back and watch. Like, they literally just hand him the ball all the time. If you've ever taken one of their receiver props, you know what I mean? You're just like, come on, throw the ball. Like my God. But I think I had him last week or the week before at 102, and I never go into the hundreds, but it just felt right. I mean, and to your point, he doesn't need to get the record to get over this number. He doesn't have to get close. So, yeah, no, I don't mind that one at all. Although it does go against the Colts, though, them losing. So there's that.
We might, right. This is a part you gotta,
now we're conflicting.
You bet with your head, not your heart. My head tells me that the Colts are going to run all over the Jaguars, not lose to them.
Yeah. Here's the only concern I have with this one here is that the Colts cannot afford anything to happen to Taylor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
The Rams can lose Cooper Kupp, and it's a big loss. There are ways for the Rams to win without Cooper Kupp. I don't think you can say that about the Colts without Jonathan Taylor. And that game last week against the Raiders is a perfect example. When you need Carson Wentz to make a big play or make a play late, it does not happen. That is the biggest thing with Carson Wentz. He just crumbles under pressure. He makes these bonehead decisions, these bonehead throws. If they lose Jonathan Taylor, that Colts team is dead in the water. They don't have a chance. So if they get up to an early lead, there should be no reason to play Taylor in the second half. If they have a handle of this game, there's no reason to play Jonathan Taylor. You're just playing with fire at that point. So that would be my concern with the Taylor prop, is that they have this game. Okay, good. Lock it up. Start sitting guys, because you can't win games with Carson Wentz. And I think deep down they know that too.
It could be. I'm just giving out angles here, and they're probably angles that I'm going to invest in, but we'll see. And as you'll notice, now I'm going to do two financial ones, but they're all overs, obviously, because guys need to get certain numbers to get these. Stephon Diggs, Bills facing the Jets, huge favorites, 17, whatever it is, 17. Got to win this game to win the division. Stephon Diggs is 6 receptions away from 1.55 million. He's at 94. He gets 1.55 million for a 100 reception season. He's another 1.55 million away from 231 yards. Probably not going to get that because you're going to be up on the Jets. No need to throw and no need to risk Diggs going into the playoffs to get that. But 6 receptions. Once the game starts and he has his 4 for 55 or whatever, and they're up 14-0, you think that Josh Allen's not going to get him a couple screens to get him 1.55 million? Stephon Diggs will take you out to a very nice dinner after you give him those screen passes. This one might be my favorite because it's, the only problem is I don't think we have a number here yet. If the number comes out at 6.5, then you can't bet it because he might get his 6 and they might be up and get benched. I pray for Stephon Diggs over 5.5 receptions.
It was 5.5 last week.
Yeah.
Pretty juiced, but I mean,
well, that doesn't, I'll lay minus 150, 5.5, no problem.
Yep. That was the one I have at the top of my list.
Oh, really?
That one fits perfect into, what the line might be, what the narrative is, just everything about it. That feels good. And the Bills don't run. And that's what happens to the Jets a lot of times is everyone just runs over them. So then the receivers get no love. Well, the Bills don't really run much. So I don't know. That one feels right.
The only thing is we just need the number. We need the 5.5 instead of the 6.5, and we'll see. We're recording on Thursday afternoon. We'll see what it comes out at.
Yeah, 5.5 makes a lot of sense, but yeah, if it comes out at 6.5, it's a no bet. You can't do 6.5.
Nope.
Yep, that would stink. We're praying, we're hoping. All right, last one. I got burned by Antonio Brown badly, but now the Bucks are down bodies. The Bucks are playing to win this game. They can still move up or still protect moving down in the standings. Limited bodies to pass the ball to, but Old Faithful for Tom Brady, you got Gronk. Gronk needs 7 receptions for $500,000. Gronk needs 85 yards for $500,000. The props are obviously going to be lower on both. Gronk over receptions, Gronk over yards. I'm either doing more analysis, and maybe John, you seem to know this already, John, so maybe you have more analysis. I'm either doing analysis on which one's better between receptions or yards, or betting both of these.
I like both. Because they fit. His receptions last week were like 4.5. I think the yardage was like 48.5 or somewhere in there.
He'll be, with no Brown and a little bit of knowledge of the incentives, we might be looking at 5.5 and 50.5 now, but still.
I think he went like 7.
Oh,
what was it? It was like 7 for $1.15. So I mean, like he
had a very good game.
Yeah, he did it. But I mean, the reception's 4.5. That feels right. Also, Brady has, I think he's
7 for 115 for Gronk last week.
Yeah, so I mean, it's in his wheelhouse. It's not like he hasn't done that before. And Brady needs, I think, like 450 or something crazy for the season long record. Like, I don't know that he would actually try, but there is that. Yeah, so there's that angle too.
Season record.
They're only 8-point favorites. You saw them last week. They had a tough time with the Jets. So, I mean, I like both, man.
Fair. I do too.
Yeah.
So last week was, if you want to call the first game where Gronk was playing and there was no Antonio Brown. I guess we'll call it for half of game, and no Chris Godwin. He ended up with 20.4% of the total target share on the team. So that ended up leading the team. Really, the only person that got the biggest bump was that kid Grayson. That's the one who got the biggest bump, because obviously no Brown, no Godwin or whatnot. So the target share went to Gronkowski, if you want to call that, through the last half of the game. So if that's going to be the continued trend, then that would make a lot of sense here. I'd actually be interested to see if they have a number on Grayson, because Brady seemed to go to him fairly quick after Brown was out too, instead of someone like Tyler Johnson. So Gronk and Grayson would probably be the two guys that I have my eye on this one, but that makes a lot of sense for the Gronkowski one.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what my favorite is, but I like those are the 4 that I had. I like them a lot. We'll see how I play them. We'll see what the numbers are. Anything else on your list, player prop wise, for week 18, John?
Mike Evans needs like 54 yards for 1,000 again, and that's in his range of 55.5. I mean, you're gonna have to watch the injuries report just to, with that guy. So if he plays, I mean, that's something to think about.
Is he financially incentivized to have another?
I don't know. That's what, I don't think so. All I have written down is the 1,000 yards. But I mean, some of those guys, they care about that stuff. It's like his 8th year in a row or something like that to start his career. So maybe there is that. Maybe it means more for that. I mean, I could talk myself into betting anything really, but that one sticks out.
That one, I'm just thinking, he's getting to be he's a vet now, and you're down 2 receivers now. You cannot afford to lose Evans. You can't afford to lose Gronk either. So I'm contradicting myself a little bit, but we'll see how much without any financial incentive, how much the meaning of another 1,000-yard season matters to Evans. It's not many he needs, so he'll probably get there because they're going to try to win. Steve, any prop angles circled for you this week that we haven't covered?
I mean, this one goes all the way to that Monday game, but Eckler absolutely ran
Sunday night.
Sunday night. But Eckler absolutely ran all over the Raiders in that first game, 15 carries for 117 yards. His rushing yards for this game is at 57 right now. Like, that just seems stupidly low.
They are involving more. They are playing 3 running backs and involving them. So maybe the evolution of the backfield has a little bit to do with it. But yeah, this is a playoff game, we think, until the Jags win. This is a playoff game on Sunday Night Football. So you're gonna go to your best players. So it makes sense to get Eckler more involved now when it counts.
And that just seems like a really low number. Like in that game that against the Raiders before, he was averaging just under 8 yards per carry. So if he gets even something close to that, it wouldn't take much to go over that yard total, even if they were doing scaling his carries back a little bit here too. But that just seems like a really low number. So I love that number for Eckler.
All right, fair enough.
Hey, one more I forgot about though is Mark Andrews. $141, I think, for the tight end single season record. Like 141 yards is not that much, but if you remember the Ravens, they tried to keep that streak going, so they care about records. Is my point. Huntley, if he plays, went to Andrews quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, so that one feels right, even though the matchup's not right with the Steelers, but at the same time, it's not a bad matchup either. It's just not, one that is great. They might have checked out after last week too, after the Ben game. On Monday night, it might that their season's over. That there's, I could talk myself into that. Again, we got to see the number though. I mean, if they throw something in the mid 50s, then yeah. But I mean, if you're looking at low 70s, then I don't know.
Right. I hear you. We're obviously, this week is different. We're talking all incentivized, but you're a big prop bettor, John. Any just overall strategy or advice player prop wise, speaking to NFL that you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, no, I love going with just the good run defenses. I like going tight end in those games, tight end receiver. Like those are the ones you look for the best. I mean, you're getting edges like that just because teams can't really run the ball. Like I think I already mentioned, like with the Jets, I mean, their secondary is terrible, but the problem is they give up so much running, I don't know what I'm trying to say. They give up so much in the run game that, you can just run the ball on them. Well, it's different whenever you're playing like teams like the Bucs, the Saints, those good run defenses, the Ravens, or even have the decent run defense. You're going to get production in areas where you don't normally see it. And again, with the tight end position, man, you're looking at like 30 yards sometimes, 28 and a half is their receiving yards, stuff like that.
All right, before we wrap NFL, Steve, do you have any? I know, like DK Sportsbook does a really good job of keeping all futures markets alive as late as they can possibly keep them alive. Anything futures wise that you have your eye on that you think is worth betting, that you think, now is the time, because once we get to the playoffs, this is gonna change. You want to get it in before week 18 or anything like that, or even any awards, because this is the last time the awards market is going to be open for a little while.
I mean, I still don't understand why Burrow's not favored to win comeback player of the year. Like, I know him not playing this week is going to hurt, but if we're talking about in the grand scheme of things, Dak's really disappeared since like week 9. It kind of feels like he hasn't, like, his story was great coming back, now the Cowboys are winning the division, but like you can say the same about Burrow. And if there's a reason why the Bengals are where they are, it's really because of Burrow, and it's because of Burrow over the past couple of weeks. Like, he's threw for almost 1,000 yards over the past 2 weeks. And, a lot of people say when these awards come up, it's recency bias when it comes to voting. Well, if it's recency bias, then it's 100% Burrow. So if you're still able to get him at plus money, it's plus 110 right now on DK Sportsbook. Like, that's just not set right. And especially too, if Chase is going to win Rookie of the Year, like, to me, I feel like that just correlates well. If Chase had this unbelievable year, well, it's because of Burrow and what he's able to come back and do. So I just think Burrow's the play in that one.
Well, we'll see about Chase's Rookie of the Year, but So I bet Burrow plus 125 the day before he ruled himself out for week 18, which I was a little down on, like, oh, I would love him to pile on a little bit here, especially with how hot he's been, but maybe he's done enough. Dak was minus 700 going into last week, which is nuts. Yeah. My rationale here is that, and why I bet Burrow, and I hope Dak has a bad game on Sunday, nothing personal, but I mean, Prescott was, he peaked in like September, October. He hasn't been that great lately. Burrow had a worse injury about a month later than Prescott did and came back and has been better, put up better numbers. And the Cowboys had a win total of 9.5, 10. Bengals win total was 6.5. And the Bengals have been the better story. The Cowboys are the more public story. The Bengals are the better story. So I like Burrow. We talked to Johnny Avello, director of DraftKings Sportsbook, on Tuesday. He leans to Prescott still, so that's why the odds makers are where they're at. Do you have any action or any take on it, John?
No, that one's a tough one just because it's such a biased. I mean, there's really no like number. Right. It's what these guys are gonna think, and it's tough to say one guy or the other. I'm with you on Burrow more so than Prescott, just because he hasn't really done, like, look back, like he hasn't done anything in a while. I mean, like he's just kind of treading water. So I mean, yeah, he came back. It was a horrific injury, but at the same time, Burrow has got the Bengals in the playoffs. I mean, that's huge.
Yep. Division winner playoffs.
Yeah, they won the division. Like, especially they won the AFC North. I mean, it's not like
huge.
Yeah.
Let's see. Coach of the year is the other one that I did get a bet in on. I bet Vrabel plus 350 this week. I think they're going to beat Houston, get the 1 seed in the AFC, and do it with a half season without Henry. Julio Jones coming in and giving nothing. AJ Brown in and out, and they still get it done. I'm not too worried about Zach Taylor. Like, the Bengals aren't going to sweep the board here and win every award possible. Now maybe Dak wins comeback. Mac Jones has a great game and wins Offensive Rookie of the Year, and Taylor wins Coach of the Year. I have no clue. That could be how it works out. I don't think that's how it's going to work out. LaFleur is the one that worries me, because 3 seasons with you have the Bozo McCarthy there, and he's showing his bozo-ness in Dallas. And then you go to LaFleur, who just won his 13th game for all 3 years that he's been the Packers head coach. Chance to win 14. We'll see. It doesn't matter for them, but a chance to win 14 on Sunday. LaFleur worries me, but you're telling, it's the 2-1 seed head coaches, and one of them is the favorite, and one of them's plus 350 and did it with injuries all year, including an MVP candidate out half the year. That's my thinking. That's why I took Vrabel plus 350.
I like the plus 350. I mean, you get plus 350 on anything, I'm interested,
Yeah.
LaFleur didn't win the last 2 years, right? Like, he hasn't won before this award?
That's a great question. Let me find out right now.
If he hasn't, then maybe that helps him. But again, you got to kind of crawl into the brains of the people voting for this award, which is always hard because you have no idea what these guys are thinking.
Not only that, too, I think it just goes to show how overpriced Belichick was. He's 35-1 now. He was the favorite just a few weeks ago. You know, crazy. It just goes to show how overpriced he was. And then
Belichick was even money a couple of weeks ago. Now
he's 35-1. That's insane.
That's a wild swing.
Yeah. That's insane.
And
I think it just speaks to the volatility of the market.
Yep.
Yeah. And no, LaFleur has not won. Kevin Stefanski of the Browns won 2020. John Harbaugh, Ravens won 2019. You want to hear a funny joke? 2008. Does anybody know who won Coach of the Year in 2018?
Was it McCarthy?
Adam Gase, right? Or no, Matt Nagy.
Matt Nagy.
Right?
Matt Nagy, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
12-4 Bears. Matt Nagy wins, and now everybody is calling for his job, and he's essentially stepped down. He's pretty much fired in the season. So there you go.
That's awesome.
Yes, that is awesome. All right, so we're in a little bit of an interesting week for NFL before we really get going in the postseason. So before we let you go, John, I know you're a very big NBA prop bettor. I'm a big NBA prop bettor myself. Injuries, load management, the timing of it, getting to things quick makes it huge in the NBA. And now we're in this COVID health and safety protocols era where my goodness, there's some edges in value in
Yeah.
certain spots with guys jumping into starting lineups, guys we don't even know being given, 35, 40 minutes, and just how high can you set their number if people haven't heard of them and you go slam those overs. It's a weird slate for Thursday, but if you got anything for Thursday, feel free to toss it out there. And then just overall strategy right now in the NBA for you, because it is wild out there.
It's turning to be tough now. It was easy for the last, I don't even know, month, just because you knew you were going to get somebody going into the protocols. Like every single day, you just wait all day. So basically you take, the second or third option on a team in a good matchup and just hope that their first option ends up on the protocol list, at some point in the day, because it was just happening literally every day. But now you're getting guys coming back, and they're coming back at like the end of the day. So you cap your game, and then all of a sudden you find out like, oh yeah, my guy's going back to the bench, or, just another starter's coming back. I think it happened last night with Duncan Robinson with the with the Heat. Like, he didn't start, but he played. And it was like that just ruined, I think it was Caleb Martin. Yep. But you get those things happen. It's not easy. Tonight, I think we have one last ride for Jalen Smith of the Suns. He has a decent matchup against the Clippers, except for the fact that the Suns are such heavy favorites that they could just blow them out and, we'd be all done. But I think I saw his number at 13.5. He could get that easily. Everybody scores on the Clippers in the paint, and that kid's dangerous. They'll go to him. But other than that, the strategy now is just to sit back and wait literally till 6:30, 7 o'clock.
Yeah, you bet him late.
Because you just don't know what's gonna come across, Twitter. Because man, it can change everything.
The one that I've been riding recently that has been my favorite. Because guys are still going into health and safety. You see a lot of guys coming back, but guys are going in. So Seth Curry, points, rebounds, assists over the last 2 games has been one that I've been on, because before that game a couple nights ago, Tyrese Maxey and Thibault, who, not that much production offensively, but still 30-something minutes on the wing, both go into health and safety. Bet Curry, he got 2 fouls in 2 minutes and went to the bench. He still got there handily in the fourth quarter, cashed by like 5 or so. Went back to it on Wednesday night. Shake Milton got hurt in that previous game. He's now out with an actual injury for that Wednesday game against the Magic. Seth Curry's points, rebounds, assists opened 22.5, closed 23.5. He finished 39. Like the edges here, there's only so many guards you can play, and you're going against the Orlando Magic. Like,
exactly.
Find the spots. The spots are there. It's maybe not there on Thursday, but again, we're recording at 1 o'clock. By the time 6:30 rolls around, something probably will be there. I'll say one thing that I'm eyeing. So Memphis has been pretty hot lately. Ja Morant's been playing out of his mind. Desmond Bane's been really good. He's doubtful for this game. And Dylan Brooks is questionable to return from protocols. If there's no Bane and no Brooks, I'll just go Ja Morant over 26.5 points at home against the Pistons, a game they're going to win, a game that he can run it up. That's one that I'll go to if both the other secondary scorers on the wing are out from Memphis. We'll see if that happens. But Morant's gone over this in 4 of his last 5, and he stayed under last game by the hook. He had exactly 26. So if you take Bane and Brooks, if you take Bane out and Brooks doesn't return, that's where I'll be going. That's where I got my eye for the Thursday NBA card. DK
will give you 30 plus for something, especially I like doing that on, the 26s, 26.5, 27.5, just because you'll get a decent number. And it's 26.5 really that different than 30. I mean, if you're like, if you're getting a nice
over,
boost.
First of all, let me tell you, he went, where are you, John Morant? Okay, so he had 26 last game. Prior to that, 36, 30, 41, 33.
Yeah.
So 4 30-point games in a row. And let me see.
They've got the Pistons tonight, too. I mean, the
Pistons at home.
Like last night, they were absolute trash against the Hornets. I mean, that was terrible.
So the Memphis specials, Morant points is on the board. The Memphis specials are off the board because they want to know about those other guys. But yeah, you'll be able to get whatever it might be, plus high 100s, 200 on Morant to have a 30-point game. That'll come out.
Yeah, that's not that crazy.
He's done it in 4 or 5, so no, it's not crazy at all.
I mean, it's not
80%,
like it's
nothing crazy about 80% when you're talking like games. Steve, you want to give us an NBA prop tonight?
Seth Curry.
Well, the Sixers don't play. Steve's not an NBA guy, John. He doesn't have money. Anti-money guy. All right. Anyway, as we teased off the top of the show, we got Ben Rasa coming on from Awesemo.com. We're going to talk some national championship coming up next. Bama, Georgia, Monday night. You already know where I stand on this one, but Ben will come on and tell us more. John Hyslop from Odds Checker. Find him on Twitter @SlopRules. Thank you for coming on the Unreasonable Odds podcast, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, as promised throughout the episode of the Unreasonable Odds podcast, we're not going to get a chance to talk to you before Monday, January 10th, national championship game between Georgia and Alabama. We got what we wanted, or most of us got what we wanted, unless you bet Michigan. The SEC championship game rematch, the two best teams in the country, in my mind. I think that's why this game is good. We're getting the two best teams in the country. It's a rematch of a really good game that kind of went the opposite way that a lot of us thought it would go the first time around. And the New Year's Eve games were kind of boring. Let's be honest. Alabama and Georgia dominated, and I don't see that happening either way in this game. So it's going to be fun. So as we have done at points throughout the college football season, Ben Rasa of Awesemo.com joins us to dissect the last one. We got one left, dude. How was bowl season for you so far, actually? I should ask that.
Yeah, so it was good. I'm not going to complain as I complain. I bet a lot of games really early, and I was fortunate to get
Same.
I had Utah plus 7.5. I had Tennessee, an amazing number, didn't get there. Kentucky ultimately did get there, but some of the games where I really had some good closing value didn't come to fruition. And, the semifinal games were not great for me, but overall, despite all the crazy nonsense we had to deal with and the missing players and the cancellations, I was pretty happy with bowl season. But what about you? I know we haven't talked in a little bit.
Yeah, I was, from a personal standpoint, just kind of, we're Northeast guys.
Yep.
It would have been cool to get some like Northeast, like I was excited for a Monday afternoon BC bowl game. That's kind of the upcoming team in the Northeast. You got Dracovic coming back, Flowers coming back, like their team next year. I lost on the win total this year. Next year's the year. Mm-hmm. They get canceled on a Monday afternoon. That holiday week, that would have been fun to watch. 11 a.m. kickoff, the Fenway Bowl. Like I was probably going to try and go to that. That was exciting. Axed, like some personal preferences could have gone different ways, but yeah, I updated on Twitter. I was well overdue to update like how I'm doing with sports. College football bowl season, 13-7 plus 7.8 units. So
yeah, that'll work.
Again, can't complain. I've never been so devastated on a 1.5 unit win as I was with the Rose Bowl. I had all Utah plus 7.5. I made 1.5 units, but I had a bunch of money line as well. I was convinced that they were going to win that game. They probably should have won that game, but they could not stop the pass. So yeah, that was a little depressing. But yeah, overall good stuff. My least favorite part of bowl season, as our Pitt producer Samir knows very well, I was right in line to middle Michigan State +3 and Pitt +3.5. Oh. It was right there for me to just rake it in.
That's
and
unfortunate.
I still made money on the game because I left more exposure to the good number I had on Michigan State. But yeah, that would have been a lot of money.
Yeah, the Tennessee, that game was off the rails. That one hurt. And then honestly, kind of like your Utah, my other biggest complaint, and this is of course in hindsight, having seen what LSU put on the field, I did have some exposure to Kansas State. That was not a competitive team. That should have
bowls.
Oh my God. I don't know why they even played that game, but having seen it, they should have been a 30-point favorite, not even at steam to 10. That was not nearly enough.
So I had K-State -6.5.
Yeah, so did I.
And Toronto Raptors money line parlay that night that hit. And then the K-State's second half team total was like 11.5. So I was watching the game and I was like, I think you got to bet that. And it got there like very quickly. So
Yes,
that was my most profitable game. And yeah, like you, I'm greedy and angry that wasn't 10 unit play. Now we know when teams have less than 40 players and no quarterback, probably bet against them. Okay, that is the past. We're now looking into the future, which is much more difficult to do. Alabama, Georgia, round 2. Everybody knows where I'm going to go, but I will speak on that after you. You came on Unreasonable Odds to talk conference championship weekend. You were high on Georgia. I didn't bet Georgia, but I didn't disagree with you. I let my awful Alabama to win the SEC minus 125 future ride and had a great time doing so. What happens this time around? How much are you looking at the first game? What's going to be different in the second game? All that type of stuff.
Yeah. So obviously, I think the clear biggest takeaway is Georgia's defense is not invincible. They're very, very good. We still know that. They're not invincible, though. Alabama absolutely carved them up. Guys were running, particularly through the pass, guys were running wildly free. Now, one of those guys, and we'll get into this, was John Mechie, and he's not going to be there. I do think that Georgia learned some things, and they used that to their advantage against Michigan, particularly with these quick passes. Stetson Bennett was getting the ball out so incredibly fast against Michigan. It was diffusing that pass rush. And I think that's what they want to do. I was super impressed with what they did with James Cook, getting him in the receiving game. I didn't really see that against Alabama the first time. I kind of feel like Georgia, and rightfully so, they said, why would we change everything? We've dominated everyone. We're going to go in. We're going to do what we do. And Alabama had answers. In a reverse, I want to ask you this, because this is my biggest thing. It's almost ironic. Looking at Georgia this time, I do think it would be much, even though obviously we would have seen it once, I think it would be really hard to ask them to beat Alabama twice. I almost like in some way that they lost the first game, because to beat Bama twice seems even more difficult.
Yeah, you're saying to beat Georgia twice seems more difficult for
either team. Like if you won the first game, it's obviously you take something away knowing you can do it. And Bama might just have their number. I do think that that's something we should talk about. That Bama, I mean, Georgia's had these teams. They've been in these spots so many times against Alabama and they don't get there. But man, as a favorite, once again, they are still favored in this game.
Right.
Whew, I do feel somewhat confident that Georgia can do some things this time around that they did not show in the SEC championship.
I agree with you. Losing in the, I misinterpreted the first time, or I just wasn't listening. Georgia losing the first game is good for Georgia.
Getting back for the rematch. Yes, I actually think it is, as ironic as that sounds.
In ways, yes. And so here's Alabama's disadvantage. Like if Alabama lost the SEC championship game, they're out. Georgia knew you lose, you're in. So Alabama had to show everything in a must-win game to get in. That was the equivalent of the national championship game, as was the Cincinnati game. It was a do-or-die game, win-or-go-home game for Alabama. This will be Alabama's third win-or-go-home game in a row. This will be Georgia's second. So they had to show everything in that first matchup on December 4th. And now they happen to be playing the same opponent that they just showed everything to. So that's my one red flag with Alabama. Now, will they be able to pass it all over the place? Bryce Young, 26 of 44 for 421, 3 touchdowns, no picks in the first matchup. 6 for 97 and 1 went to Mechie. Jamison Williams was the go-to guy, 7, 184, 2 touchdowns. Slade Bolden was solid, and then just a mix of everyone else. Brock Bowers tore him up on the Georgia side, 10 for 139 and a touchdown in that first matchup. He tears everybody up.
Yes.
For Georgia. Brian Robinson, 16 carries for 55. They shut him down. He had, wasn't it over 200 against Cincy? They just were pass against Georgia, run against Cincy. Where's the happy medium going to be in this game for Alabama is a huge question for me. And then the fact that, I mean, Stetson Bennett had 340 yards and 3 touchdowns. He just also threw 3 picks. Georgia couldn't really run it against Alabama. That 30 carries as a team for 109 in that last game. James Cook was the leading rusher, 38 yards on 11 carries. They couldn't run it. So who can run the ball? Will Alabama be able to pass the ball as well? Ultimately, you know where I'm going. I think it's a mental hurdle for Georgia. I think you're giving me an underdog with the better coach and the better quarterback. I like to think of it in those, it has nothing to do with the game, but that's a way of thinking of it. Look, I don't need to bet the game. I got Bama plus 220 to win it all. I got Bama 235 to win it all. I got Bama 3-something to win it all. I'll just probably let those ride. If I'm smart, I'll hedge, but I'm not that smart. So yeah, I'll be going with Alabama, as everybody knows I will be. But this is going to be a much better game than the last one.
It better be. That would be shocking. If Alabama rolls them again,
single digit game, no matter which way it goes.
I would agree with that. And I think so. A couple different things. One, Stetson Bennett threw the ball 48 times against Alabama. There is no world that Georgia wants that to happen. His happy medium is what he did against Michigan, 21 of 31 for 310, just really clean, really good looks. I don't think either team is going to be able to run with any sort of, great success, to be honest. It's just, to me, Georgia showed some things against Michigan that they had a trick play that was really just a very more dynamic offense. And I do think there was an element where they've just been dominating everyone. They rolled into Bama and they were so vanilla. They just did what they did, and their defense was not able to pressure Bryce Young to the extent that other teams, even Cincinnati, honestly, that game was fully in hand, but Cincinnati did get to him a little bit. And I know he was smart enough to realize he didn't need to try to make plays because they could just run it at will, and Cincinnati couldn't do anything. But I want to see what happens here if Bryce Young is put to the pressure of that front, and certainly with Bowers, with Cook, Pickens to an extent. I would really be shocked if Georgia doesn't unveil at least something to potentially put some strain on Bama, because if there's one spot where Bama is still a little vulnerable injury-wise, it is that secondary. They used the true freshman extensively against Cincy. Now, he's obviously, like everyone, a 5-star, but I want to see what they do against Georgia the second go-around.
Georgia's going to run that play. Like you said, they're going to try something.
Sure.
The question is, will Alabama be ready for it? Total-wise, what do you think here? 52 points. And team total-wise, like Georgia over 26.5 is minus 130 on DK Sportsbook right now. Alabama is even money for over 25.5 points on the team total. That is just dangling bait in front of my face that I really want to snatch and ultimately might write up in my best bets article for this game. Like they scored 41 in that one. I know they scored 27 against Cincy, but that was run, and then just put the clamps on. Like Cincy had 6 points. They didn't have to do anything. They're going to have to do something here.
No doubt. So it's going to be fascinating because, one way or another, we're going to find out. When you look at Georgia, there is one gigantic outlier in every statistical category defensively for them right now, and it's the Alabama game. Every other game looks different. Now, you could say that's, the SEC East, and maybe they just haven't played anyone to Bama's caliber, which is true. But also, if they play Bama again, are they giving up that type of points? I kind of lean under. I think if it goes under, Georgia has an even better chance to win the game. I don't see many ways where they just straight outscore Bama.
True. And what did Georgia score in the first game? They had 24 points. So yeah. They need to win 24-21. Like,
they're not built to score. If this game is 38, played in the high 30s, I just don't know how Stetson Bennett, who's been better than I thought.
Which is funny because Georgia put up all the points and won the blowout in the last round, and Alabama scored the 27 to win the low scoring grinder. And now it's Alabama that's going to want to speed it up. I said to you as we were coming on, darn, I really wish we had some player props to talk about. And we're recording this at like noon on Thursday, January 6th on the East Coast. Guess what just came up on DK Sportsbook? Player props for this game.
Look at that.
So I told you 10 minutes. I lied. We're going to talk about these for a couple of minutes. Passing yards, Bryce Young, 314.5. Stetson Bennett, 249.5. That's low.
It is low. It's funny, though. This is one of these props that I think is actually ironic. If Stetson Bennett goes under that number, I think Georgia wins. Yeah, way more. They don't want him throwing. If Stetson Bennett has 400 yards passing, they lose.
If he goes over, it's we're down 10, 14. We got to make up some ground. If he goes under, they're handing it to Cook and those guys.
Yep.
Passing touchdowns. I played Bryce Young over 2.5 in the last against Cincy and got there. Over 2.5 is plus 230. That's tempting.
Plus 230?
Sorry, plus one. Over 2.5 is plus 130.
I was gonna say I'm driving up there. I gotta place that right now.
Never mind. Stetson Bennett set at 1.5. The overs minus 130. Rushing yards. Robinson 64.5. Cook 42.5. I know he was right there last time, but that's pretty low. Stetson Bennett 13.5. Trey Sanders 19.5. Zamir White 46.5. Receiving yards, long list here, but let's go to some of the top guys. Bowers is 66.5. That immediately.
That's an over.
Yep, that jumps. Billingsley, the tight end for Bama, is 14.5. That seems, I mean, that's just a catch or two. That seems kind of low.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because obviously there's a big question of, Mechie, the loss is going to be felt. I don't think it's out of the realm that Alabama goes to more like 12 personnel or changes some of the formations. And a guy like Billingsley actually steps up from a pass catching standpoint.
Right. That's looking like an over to me. James Cook jumps out to me because he was involved. 4 for 28 the last game. They run a lot of wheel routes to him. He's 17.5. That is interesting.
That's another good one.
Jamison Williams is going to have a huge game, but he is set at 112.5, so I cannot touch that. That is a big old number. Who else here? I guess Slade Bolden at 39.5 is a fair one. He's a nice little underneath guy for Bama, but I would prefer the really low number, 14.5 on Billingsley if I'm playing one of those guys. Anything on those receiving props jump out to you?
I like James Cook. That's one that, I would imagine that you could confidently peg him for, I think even conservatively, maybe like 3 to 5 targets, and they all should be converted because they're basically screens. In the last game against Michigan, he had 4 for $112. He had 4 catches against Bama. I don't know why he wouldn't recreate that same role. And in some regards, I actually think he might be live to have more than that. And I feel pretty good about them. I think the ones that you kind of at first glance picked as this stands out. I'm right with you on all 3 of those.
And James Cook's receptions is a juicy minus 135 to over 2.5. Bowers, by the way, is 4.5 receptions. It's minus 135, but
he's gotta. I mean, even if Georgia wins, I know I've talked about you want the passing volume to be down for Georgia in this game. Bowers is still got to get some work though. He is unbelievable. I can't stress how impressed every time I see him play as a freshman.
And Billingsley, by the way, plus money to the over 1.5 receptions. So I don't know what you like more, 14.5 yards, or just give me the 2 catches for plus 110. That's tempting.
It is. It really, I know he's not, obviously they've still got other guys that are quote unquote focal point of the offense, but it feels like he's in line to get a slight uptick, especially against Cincinnati. It was not needed. They knew that they could run Robinson at will. That will not be the case this go around.
Yep. All right. Well, that is why I brought you on. Ben, the bad guy, going with Georgia.
Again, I was wrong the first time, so we're gonna see if we can redeem ourselves.
We are a Bama. Steve doesn't do college football, so I speak for us when I say we are a Bama podcast here at Unreasonable Odds.
What about last night? Bama on the hardwood.
I went with Florida. I took the Gators.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, college basketball's been.
I hear that.
We'll talk again later there. Plenty of time to March. Actually, not really. It's sneaking up, but March will be here. All right. Ben Rasa of Awesemo.com. Thank you for coming on, talking to Natty. Real quick, as I've mentioned on the podcast, we are giving away some free bets on DK Sportsbook. We will have a national championship giveaway related. It'll be coming from the DK Sportsbook Twitter handle, promoting Unreasonable Odds. So stay tuned for that on Monday. Ben, you got anything going on at Awesemo?
Yeah, I mean, obviously for me, you know, with PGA coming back, we're super busy there. But with the NFL playoffs, the NBA, and of course, college football and basketball, you can find all my work over at awesemo.com. Obviously, if you want, stop on in. We'd love to have you as part of the community.
Beautiful. That is a podcast. Plenty of action on the show, plenty of guests on the show. And we will be back on Tuesday to talk NFL wildcard weekend, recap the Natty, all those fun things. Talk to you guys next week.